manifesting the vision. And we're going to get more into detail. My name is Christina Foster. I am the founder and the visionary of Bandage Control. And I'm also, I call myself a crisis intervention specialist, like Christ and like sis, like a sister in Christ intervening on you guys' behalf. I'm also a published author. I actually published my first book at the age of 23, my senior year of college here at Buff State. I'm a I don't like to say motivational speaker, but I'm a consultant. And with Bandage Control, it's actually consultation services that I provide for people in the community. Eventually, I would like to go national, international, and the whole idea is to heal broken hearts one testimony at a time. Throughout my life, I've experienced a lot of traumatic events, and I allowed myself to push past those things by realizing there's always an alternative. You understand what I'm saying? You know, you always have option A, you also always have option B, and there's also option C. So you have to choose which option you're going to take regardless of what you have endured. Bandage Control actually came about probably around like 2 summers ago. Yeah, 2 summers ago, where I realized there was a lot of people that were in church, and they were in church and they were just going through the daily regimens of life. But they were still bound, they were still broken, they were still hurt. It's like, how can you be in church, but it seemed like you're not getting the proper tools you need in order to survive, in order to be happy, in order to be healed? So then that's when I got the idea of Bandage Control. And what I realized is that we go through a lot of things and we just place bandages on our wounds, and we expect to just keep being happy, keep being a mother, or keep being a father, or keep being a sister, or keep being an entrepreneur, or whatever it is that you do. But the thing is, you cannot move in direct accordance with what you have for yourself if you don't get the proper healing. So that's where this came from. Okay, so at any given time, if you guys have any questions, you can always feel free to just stop and ask me. And again, Bandage Control is, it's just basically about my life, like what I've experienced. Y'all want me to get a little deep with it? Yes. A little. Okay, I'll get a little deep. Okay, so for instance, I grew up in 7 different foster homes, and within those foster homes, I was actually subjected to physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. I witnessed my brother actually being molested by our foster mother, raped by our foster mother, and I was actually poisoned by my foster mother. So, you know, that took a major emotional turn for me. When I was in high school, I was reading and writing on the 4th grade level, and I had terrible, terrible relationships. I mean, it didn't matter if the guy was cheating on me. The fact that he showed me some type of attention, the fact that he gave me love, I felt like that made me feel alive. So with that being said, after I graduated 2011, that summer, I was praying so hard, and I'm like, God, I need to change. I can't keep going through life broken. How is it that I just published a book and I'm still broken? How is it that, you know, I'm an AKA, I'm painting the town pink and green, you know what I mean? But I'm still broken. Like, what is the problem? So then God was like, I'm going to heal you, but I have to remove you. So I ended up moving to New York City, and I hated it. I totally hated New York City. I moved there, and when I tell you, I was stripped from everything. Like, I was stripped from, I mean, friends started dropping off. My family was calling me crazy. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to sleep, but I was following the will of God. And one thing I learned is that the will of God will never take you where it can't keep you. And so while I'm there, I'm sitting here sleeping at this friend's house, staying at that friend's house, you know, rats, mice, all of this stuff is crawling on me, and all of this craziness. No matter how many times I applied for a job, it was either it was temporary or I couldn't keep it. Temporary or I couldn't keep it. So, you know, I'm like, God, well, I'm out here serving you. And at the time, I was under the tutelage of Bishop Hezekiah Walker. And I was faithful. You know, I never missed a beat. I mean, there was times I would go to church, the bottom of my soles on my shoes was completely gone. And I had to wrap plastic bags around my feet, but I did not stop. And I kept going to church, kept being faithful. So then, after my 3 years was up, I felt like a shift was coming in my life, hence shifting gears. And I felt like a shift was coming in my life, and God was like, I'm going to restore all the years. Everything that you sacrificed, I'm going to give it back to you double. And I said, okay, God, what you want me to do? Because I want to go to Chicago. He's like, no, you have to go back to Buffalo, and you have to start Bandage Control. And now this is the summer of 2013. He was telling me this. I'm saying, no, I'm not going back to Buffalo. I'm going to Chicago. And then he said, Christina, you need to go back. So what propelled me to come back was that in December of 2013, my cousin was murdered. And I felt like if I would have did what God told me to do, coming here, starting Bandage Control, perhaps, you know what I mean, it wouldn't have never happened that way. We were really close. We lived in the same household. And I actually was with him an hour and 15 minutes before he was murdered. So that kind of took a toll on me. And it was within that moment I said, okay, God, I'm going to do your will. So the whole point of that story is that sometimes the will of God is uncomfortable. Sometimes the will of God, it just don't make any sense at all. You know what I mean? Sometimes the will of God is just like, okay, God, am I really hearing you, or is this really me? And normally when it's a tug of war, you know it's God, because you fighting with your flesh, saying that you want to do what you want to do, and then you fighting with the spirit side of you, saying that you are supposed to do what God is calling you to do. So February, I think it was around 11th, God was like, you got to go home now. And I'm like, okay, God, if I'm going home, and at this point, we're going to talk about it next week, about declaring and decreeing. And so I said, okay, God, if I'm going home, you're going to have to open up doors. I said, and I don't want it. I done suffered enough. My suffering days are over. So I was like, okay, if I go home, you're going to have to open up a door for me to work. And I don't want just no regular job. I'm not trying to be working at nobody's Mickey D's flipping no burgers. That ain't happening. You're going to set me up. You're going to set me up right. So I was like, I want to work with either juvenile delinquents or pregnant mothers. Out of nowhere, I was just sending out emails. I got all of these interviews back to back to back. And literally the day I left, which was February 18th, I actually had an interview that day. So I'm coming in on the bus on an interview. Get in the house. It's a message on the answer machine for another interview. Go to that interview. They wanted me to interview for another job. So when I tell you, when you really yield to the will of God, like doors will begin to open. So after that, I was just like, I was stuck and I was mesmerized because I'm like, how in the world are these doors opening? And the crazy thing about these doors, all the jobs that I got offers for was all juvenile delinquency and pregnancy. Adolescent, whether it's adolescent teenage pregnancy or pregnant mothers. So I knew within that moment, I really ran my course. I did exactly what God told me to do. I suffered. I mean, sister girl was hungry. I mean, I was losing weight. You know what I mean? I was hungry. I had moments when I was hungry, but I never gave up. I kept yielding in. So now, fast forward, we're actually shifting gears. I'm going to tell you guys about what's the purpose of shifting gears, why we're shifting gears, why we're doing this right now. And the reason why I wanted to have it in February, because you guys just got back to school. I want you guys to have like a jump start, with your academics. And anybody in here in sororities? No, any organization, CSO, ASO, BAM. Okay, good. So I want you guys to get in the jump start. I want your minds to be channeled into what you're trying to do and execute everything to get to where you're trying to go. Okay? So now we're going to move on to, so this week, like I said, we're doing shifting gears before I crash. Next week, there's a king/queen in you, so find it. And that one, we're going to talk about morals, values, standards. Who are you? What does God say about you, about you being fearfully and wonderfully made? What is your purpose? How do you find purpose? The third week, we're going to talk about setting goals. Come in, just sign in, please. Hey, Sharaya. The next week, we're going to talk about setting goals and establishing bank goals. So if anybody want to prepare their taxes, one of my homegirls, Nicole Douglas, she actually has her own accounting firm. And she does tax preparation, so she's going to take 20% off. That starts at 6 o'clock, but this program starts at 7. And the final week, which is actually February 26th, it is I Can See Clearly Now, Let's Manifest Vision. And I'm not going to tell you guys what that's about because I want you guys to be surprised. And I actually found this quote that was by Steve Jobs. Kayla, would you mind reading it for me, please?
If you are working on something that you really care about, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you.
And that's true. Perfect, thank you. Oh, and Kayla's my volunteer. Okay, so an overview. We talked about what Bandage Control was. I don't have to go back over that. These are the topics we are going to discuss. The importance of shifting gears, a paradigm shift, proper procedure for changing lanes, establishing constraints in order to succeed, and strategy preventing calamity, group exercises, and lastly, expectations. My expectations is just for you guys to have fun. I have index cards if you guys want to take notes, and I'm going to ask questions throughout the event, and you can just jot things down because we're going to review it. Another expectation is just that you guys participate. You know what I mean? I'm not asking too much of you guys, but I just want you to participate because I really want you guys to really get the full experience. Okay? Okay, so you are the next big thing. Do you guys remember when the Samsung, I think it was Samsung 5 or 6 or something when it came out? And they had these big old poster boards everywhere and kept saying, you are the next big thing, or the next big thing is here. So the reason why we're having this is because I need you all to realize that you are the next big thing. Like, the next big thing ain't going to be 5 years from now. It's not going to be after you graduate. It's not going to be after you get married. It's not going to be after you get that job, that dream job that you finally, that you've been praying over or really excited about. No, the next big thing starts right now, and the next big thing starts with you, okay? So, does anybody know what a paradigm shift is? I know they teach it in like psychology and stuff. Anybody? Any idea? Could you like try to piece together what you think it might be? She's like, let me read this paragraph real quick. So let me just read this really quick. Well, I'll read it for you guys. Okay, so a paradigm shift. In 1962, Thomas Kuhn wrote The Structure of Scientific Revolution and fathered, defined, and popularized the concept paradigm shift. Excuse me. Kuhn argues that scientific advancements are not revolutionary, but rather is a series of peaceful interludes punctuated by intellectual violent revolutions, and in those revolutions, one conceptual world view is placed by another. Y'all probably like, okay, what you trying to say? What does all that jump mean? What it basically means that there are certain things that occur in life, right? There are certain inventions that occur in life. But then there's this type of shift that aligns you in another direction that causes room for a whole nother entity to be born. For example, when years ago, eons ago, when we first started, you know, as humans, we had the whole hunting, we had the whole gathering thing, right? And then something happened. We went from doing hunting and gathering, then it developed. Now we're not only just hunting and gathering, now we have little houses, we have little tents, we have little shacks. You know, it was a paradigm shift that causes people to change. You get what I'm saying? Let me give you another example. When we first started out with technology, you know, we had the computers. It was more like a processor. It wasn't as developed, it wasn't as technical as it is now, but then as years begin to advance, now we're moving more to, we went from an industrial type of society to more of a technology type of society. Another example is the printing press. When the very first printing press was developed, it was really like it had to print things in a way where it was very slow, very slow. Very slow. Then somebody else came and added brand new ideas to the idea that was already there. So it birthed a new invention and it birthed a new idea, right? So now that's what a paradigm shift is, looking at where you are now. And this goes for all of you guys, looking at where you are now, not only as a person, but where you are in this era, where you are in this generation, where you are in society, where you are in the timing, where you are in politics. Where are you right now in this place, and seeing what can you do to contribute to get to the next place. That makes sense? Okay.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was it that we were supposed to be writing down? I missed that.
I'm going to ask you guys questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're going to have like a little exercise.
Okay.
And it's actually two index cards, so if you feel like you want to write down any like bullet points for yourself, you can do that as well. Okay? Like I said, hunting and gathering. We went from hunting and gathering to landscape and small villages. I talked about the printing press, personal computer to internet. Industrial society. We went from an industrial society, to organic information-centered society, like I just discussed. And one thing I wanted to talk about that's always going to be constant is change. That's one thing that will always remain the same. That's one thing that you can always expect to either work for your favor or work against you. And can somebody explain why they think that this information is important about the paradigm shift? It could be your own interpretation, yes.
Kind of like, well, you said that change, like there's always an idea that people start with, and then off of that idea, new creations are born. So
right.
That means change, which is what you just said is probably the only constant thing. So there's probably always going to be a paradigm shift coming and going and coming and going.
Absolutely. All right. Okay, passion fruit. have you guys ever heard that you should, like, it's like a scripture, but a lot of people use it, whether it's in business or whether it's just in building relationships or whether it's in building friendships, that you should know a tree by the fruit that they bear? You ever heard that? Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I want to ask you guys, like, with that being said, is it possible that perhaps the fruit that you're bearing is not bearing anything good? Is it possible that the fruit that you're bearing isn't producing anything? I mean, these are things that, go ahead. No, it's the truth. Let's think about it. I mean, it was a time when I thought I was booming, girl. I wasn't even moving. I thought I was balling, wasn't dribbling. So, you know, a lot of times, you know what I mean? We got to ask ourselves these questions. Is it possible that what I think I'm doing or who I think I am, there's no evidence, there's no fruit? So a lot of times what I do is I ask my best friend, Awa. She's actually in law school in California. I always ask her, okay, how do you think what do you think my strengths are? Or what do you think my weaknesses are? Or what do you think I should work on? And she'll tell me. Or what do you think I have, like, I used to have a bad attitude problem. Anybody else? Nope. All right, me. Yes, I had a terrible attitude problem. Woo! Really, a little tiny bit. Okay. Yeah, I had a really, really bad attitude, but I got checked really quick with life, you know. But life would check you. But one thing I had to realize, okay, so I'm saying I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm saying I want to be an author. I'm saying, you know, I want to be a wife one day. I'm saying all of these things, but am I bearing fruit? You know, and I started to check myself. I started to see I had a bad attitude problem, easily annoyed, always frustrated. How can I try to run a successful business when I'm always getting an attitude, I'm always lashing out at someone? So you have to ask yourself these questions. Or another thing, you know, is your passion bearing fruit? Not just your character, but your passion. You understand what I'm saying? Does your passion, do people look at you? Let me ask you a question. What do you want to be?
A therapist.
A therapist. What about you? Attorney.
Speech pathologist.
Oh, right now, yes. Speech pathologist. A teacher. Engineering. Okay.
An attorney.
An attorney? Oh, right now.
An actor.
And girl, we gotta talk. I got somebody for you. I'm in acting classes now. I got somebody for you. Okay. And Brian.
Psychologist.
All right.
Therapist.
But let me ask you a question. Everybody said what they wanted to be without any hesitation or reservation. It just came like that. Right? Now, what are you doing that's bearing fruit?
Pursuing it in college.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so somebody said pursuing it in college. What else? Networking. Volunteer. Anybody else?
Organizations.
Marketing yourself.
Being organizations on campus, marketing yourself. Okay, now let me ask you this question. Now that's what you're doing from an educational standpoint. If I was to ask your friends or walk with you for a day, would I be able to see your passion?
That's crazy.
Would I be able to see it?
So homework, baby.
You see what I'm saying? So it got to go beyond just education. Because if I'm walking with you, you should be able to tell instantly, boom, what my passion is. When I'm gonna tell you the testimony about how I met my photographer. But when I first meet people, within a time frame of 20 minutes, you already know what I'm passionate about. You can hear it, you can see it. Am I lying, Juliana? Okay. You can hear it, you can see it, and that's where it has to be for you. Your passion should be so real to you. It should be so real to you towards the point that within 10 to 20 minutes of a conversation with you, people should already know. And sometimes you don't even have to tell them exactly what you're interested in. But because of your language, because of your vocabulary, because of what you focus on, because of your conversation, people can tell what you're passionate about. So make sure you take the time to go beyond just the classroom, but educate yourself about that field, about the structure, about all of that. You want to learn it to the T. One thing I always say is that I cannot stand ghetto economics. And what I mean by ghetto economics is when people who say, yeah, I'm going to be a lawyer, they haven't even took the LSAT. They haven't even been in school, don't even have an associate's, my God. You know, or people like, yeah, you know, I'm going to be a basketball player. One of my kids that I work with, currently I'm a, what do I do? Outside of this, my mind is somewhere else. Oh, I run a mentoring program. So, so my mind is somewhere else. Okay, so, you know, I told one of my kids, and he was like, you know, I want to be a basketball player. I was like, okay, so how often do you practice? I mean, I played shooting guard and point guard in high school. He was like, oh yeah, you know, I play at the Boys and Girls Club. I said, okay, but what else do you do? He said, no, that's it. And I said, you know what you want to do? I said, you do not want to be a basketball player. And he looked at me like, Miss Christina, how you gonna come at me like that? And I'm like, easy. I said, I didn't come at you. You came at yourself. I said, because you're telling me that you want to be a basketball player and the only time you practice is when you at a basketball camp. When you want to be a basketball player, I heard somebody say, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, that's when you know you'll become successful. It's within that moment. If you tell me you want to be a basketball player while everybody else is out there asleep, you need to be up grinding. While the street lights is on just enough for you to see, you need to be at the court dribbling. You need to be out there practicing your jump shot. You need to be out there playing from the free throw line. You cannot say that you want to be successful if you're not taking the necessary steps in order for you to be beyond average. So the problem with that is